Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is an Autumn Debutante Encore Azalea. This is Autumn Debutante Encore Azalea, an evergreen shrub that gets a moderate height and is most noted for its multiple bloom times every year. Autumn Debutante is a moderate growing azalea. It may reach 4 feet in height and probably 4 feet in width. Autumn Debutante, like most azaleas and most Encore azaleas, will grow best in zone 6B and all the way down to zone 9. Autumn Debutante has a moderate rate of growth. We might get 4 or 6 inches of growth out of these once they're established in the ground every year. Just from experience, I can tell you that Encore azaleas definitely need more sun than the traditional azaleas do. I would give this a half a day sun or more, but I probably would avoid a 15-hour day of sunlight in June when we have those really long days. Ideally, these would be in a lot of sun, maybe till about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then be in shade after that. Autumn Debutante would make a great foundation plant, especially if you had, windows that were 4 feet or lower. This would be perfect. It has really nice dark green foliage, and these flowers are very, very showy. It would also work great mass planted in open space with other azaleas or maybe camellias behind them, because the camellias would bloom in the winter time and these would cover a lot of the rest of the year. Of course, flowering is the main feature of Encore azaleas. They do it a lot. They'll bloom in the mid-spring and then again in the midsummer and then again in the fall. And amazingly enough, this is November right now and they're still in bloom here in zone 7. We haven't had a frost or a hard freeze yet, which is, kind of abnormal for us. They should have probably stopped by now, but it is amazing how long these have been blooming this year. Autumn Debutante has these coral pink flowers with a little bit of white in them, and they're very showy from a long distance away. The best way to ensure you're going to have great azaleas is to put a little time and thought into planting them. This is not a plant that's going to want to stay abnormally wet, not a plant that you would put on an automated irrigation system. We want to mound these up a little bit when we plant them, and that means wherever the grade of the original soil is, we want to end up with the top of the root ball on this plant sticking up above that a little bit. So we'll dig the hole, the depth of the root ball, and maybe twice the width. If you have clay-based soils, it's important that you mix something into that clay to allow it to drain a little better. Pine bark soil conditioner is the best thing. It's available at most garden centers. It's what most of your woody ornamental shrubs that you purchase, like this azalea, are grown in, because it works great in a nursery setting for the water to kind of pass through. It works the same in your clay-based soils. So dig the hole like I suggested. Mix about 50% pine bark with the existing clay. So a 50-50 mix. If you have very sandy soils, like you're out in a coastal area, you can put something in that will retain a little water, like peat moss or compost, and do that same 50-50 mix. Put some of that new soil mix that you just made into the bottom of the hole, maybe 2 inches. Pull your plant out of your container, set it into the hole, and now it's sticking up about that much. And you'll use the rest of your soil mix to pull up to the edge of the root ball, tamp it down, water it in really well, and then lightly mulch this plant. If you have pine straw in your area, that's the best thing to mulch azaleas with. If you don't, that's fine. Use hardwood mulch, the brown mulch, red mulch, whatever it is you use. Just make sure it's a very thin layer near this plant, and don't cover anything that's not covered when you purchase it. None of the wood that's above the soil line should be covered with any mulch or soil. For the first 6 months to a year after you plant these, you're going to want to check on them occasionally for watering. If you need to water, you saturate the entire area around the plant. Don't just water directly at the base of it. A lot of people make that mistake of just repeatedly watering right at the base of it. Then the plant has no reason to search the surrounding soil for water. So saturate the whole area around it if it needs it, and then let it dry out again. Kind of drown the space and then forget about it for a while. This is not a plant you want to put on an automated irrigation system, like I said, and it needs to dry out between waterings. Not crazy dry, but azaleas are pretty good. If they get dry, they'll just thin a few leaves out in the middle. You'll see some, yellow leaves in the base of it will tell you it's dry. They're usually pretty good about letting us know. Some other plants just, can be damaged very badly. Azaleas probably not so much. They'll just, if you see them thinning a little, you can take a water hose over to it and just absolutely drown the whole space around them. If you're planting these in a space where you've done a mass planting and there's going to be some root competition around them, you might want to buy a drip hose before you mulch. After you plant it, run a drip hose around and then mulch over the top of the drip hose, and then later you can plug your water hose into the drip hose and turn your water hose on and just kind of leave it for a few hours and really drown the space well. Azaleas are acid-loving plants, so any fertilizer for acid-loving plants would be ideal. Typically want to do this after they bloom the first time in the spring. Azalea Camellia Rhododendron fertilizer should be available at most garden centers. That'll be a slow release fertilizer for acid-loving plants. And of course, this is an azalea, so you know that would be right for this plant. Also, if you want an organic option, holly tone would be a good choice for these. In terms of pruning, autumn debutante azaleas, or really any Encore azaleas, you have a short window between the first bloom time in the spring and the second bloom time in the summer to get it done. I would try to get it done within about 2 weeks of that first bloom, because shortly thereafter they put on new growth and then set flower buds for the summer flowering. So if you wait too late, you're probably going to lose a lot of the summer flowers. These don't need a lot of pruning. They're very orderly in their growth habit. You'll get a crazy limb here or there that'll need to be cut off. Azaleas, once established, are pretty resilient to heavy prunings. If this thing got 4 feet tall and you wanted to cut it down to 2 feet, if it was well established, maybe a couple years old, they're actually pretty good about taking that kind of heavy pruning. All azaleas are very susceptible to lace bugs. It's an insect that will get on the back of the leaves and discolor the top of the leaf. I tend to see them mostly if you tuck them up in a corner on a foundation and there's not a lot of air movement on them. Pretty easy to control if you want to spray them. I get them on my azaleas at my house and I just don't worry about it. It's just not that big of a deal. They end up blooming fine. I don't worry about it. The main issue we have to be concerned about with azaleas is root rot. But as long as you follow instructions about elevating it when you plant it and not over mulching it and not over watering it, you shouldn't have an issue with that. Deer do love azaleas, so if you have deer grazing in your yard, you'd probably be best to use these as a foundation plant and not out in open space. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance evergreen autumn debutante Encore Azalea. Thank you for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also, comment below with any additional questions you have about Encore Azaleas. Thanks again.